Hello and welcome back to Small Talk. We've got a great episode ahead as we chat with a pair from St. Mary's College in Maryland. I'm your host, Katie Mucci. Each week on this show, we highlight the past and present of Division III, with both current and former student athletes joining to talk about their experiences, their favorite on-campus spots, the craziest road trip stories, and more. This week, we're chatting with Quinnten Hatfield, a current member of the men's lacrosse team, alongside a former member of the squad, Teddy Secor. The two talk about the best spots to grab a bite, what brought them to St. Mary's, why they've loved their Division III experiences, and more. Thanks for joining this week. Now, time for some small talk.
I'm Quinnten Hatfield. I'm a current member of the lacrosse team, defensive midfielder, and I'm a physics major at St. Mary's.
And I'm Teddy Secor. I am a former player for St. Mary's. I graduated in 2016. I'm currently a financial planner, and I also help with the face-off guys at St. Mary's College as well.
Well, welcome to both of you. Thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. I'm excited to chat and hear more about men's lacrosse life at St. Mary's. First thing we're going to talk about is just on-campus life. So hearing what it's like around campus, on campus, best spots to hang out with your teammates, things like that. Quinnten, I'll have you kick it off. When you are with your teammates or your friends nowadays, what are some of those go-to spots to hang out at? And then Teddy, if you just want to follow right up and let me know.
Well, I think that, it'll probably be similar, but there's a bunch. Our campus is really beautiful, and there's a bunch of different spots where that overlook the St. Mary's River. So, main one that comes to mind for me is the boat docks. It's where our sailing team stores their sailboats, and there's a little beach area where all the lacrosse team, other sports teams, and the rest of the students like to hang out whenever it's nice out. Um, and then on top of that, probably just at the field. There's a nice walk to our field. It's kind of secluded from everything else, so going to sports games is really special. So I think those are the two big for me, at least.
Yeah, just to piggyback, we call it the docks. There's a floating dock, really nice sand beach right on the St. Mary's River. Um, People go out paddleboarding, kayaking, just swimming, floating in the river. It's a ton of fun. Fishing is great down here as well, and so we got some pretty big fishermen alumni from our school as well. But yeah, it's just a beautiful campus. There's always something to do on campus, good hikes around campus as well. But yeah, the docks when the weather's nice, nothing beats it.
All right, now I know next time I come to Maryland where to go.
Yep.
Are there any local spots, coffee shops, restaurants, anything that someone, if they're coming to town, needs to go to? And Teddy, you can start this one, and Quinnten follow up if he misses anything.
So, something that's unique about Southern Maryland is we do have a really good seafood restaurants down here. And so there's True Crab Houses. They're a little bit farther from St. Mary's, but I am local to Southern Maryland, and so I frequent them pretty often. So you just get like a dozen, 2 dozen crabs, and you eat it on, paper towels. Sorry. But it's really good. We have a local place called St. James that is extremely well known. Everyone at St. Mary's goes there. They make the best sandwiches, really good pizzas. I pretty much go there every single day that I help coach before practice.
Yeah, Teddy will show up to a lot of practices with a nice ciabatta Dan or something. They got a bunch of specialty sandwiches um, that you can buy, and we go there a lot as a team for sure. We even actually get St. James on bus rides, um, breakfast and lunch, depending on when our game is. But for a lot of the guys now, we don't. Our campus is fairly secluded, so there's nothing really in walking distance. And if you want to drive somewhere, it's like 15 minutes till you get to like real town. But there is a small Mexican food place called Los Guayabos That's down the street from St. James. And that's where we like to go a lot. They've got really, really tasty Mexican food, big portions. It's kind of just a small, right off the road. You'd probably miss it if you're driving too fast kind of place. And we like to go there a lot, as a team and with like different classes. Like we went a couple days ago, me and some of the rest of the junior guys on the team went with the seniors who had graduated, um, and had some good food and just hung out. So that's definitely our place for sure.
Awesome. Now let's think on the road. So traveling, and I'll start with you on this one, Teddy. You are not too far removed. You only graduated, I guess, 8 years now. And I know when I think of how long ago I graduated, I want to cry. So only 8 years ago, but things have probably changed. I was trying to look up your rosters, and it looks like the current head coach might have come in your last season or two.
Yep.
So maybe things have been pretty stable, but when you think of your travel experience, this is always one of the funny things to ask about is how things have changed over the years. Um, were you guys on buses? Were you getting to fly any planes, any road trips that were that far? Or what was the situation for you like when you guys were traveling when you were playing?
Yeah, we would always take buses. I never flew with the team. We would go to like Ohio. That was usually our farthest. Some parts of like Southern Virginia, Roanoke. We would do overnights, and those overnights were fun. We would go out with the team, polo shirts, khaki pants, go out usually to a place like Olive Garden, like a big chain, and they go to Olive Garden all the time now. But I think that now Coach Childs does a lot better job with food on the bus, making sure that they have snacks or have like a good breakfast sandwich or a couple breakfast sandwiches for rides up to um, games where they have to wake up early. A lot of like what I remember is eating bananas in a bar for breakfast. I don't think that we had breakfast sandwiches. We might have had like egg sandwiches or something, but I don't really remember it. That's something that sticks out that I was pumped about, having in the morning.
So now that he's 10 years into the job, he's like, okay, I think I can use my budget a little better on
Well,
these meals.
yeah, definitely. Coach Child's first year, I think, was a little bit of a transition period for him. I don't know. I mean, right now, I feel like he's got everything processed down to a T. But I honestly can't even really remember. I know you said it wasn't too long ago, but 8 years feels like forever ago.
That's fair. I'm 10 years, so I get it. I'm not too far behind you. Um, were you guys ever, once again, not that long ago, so you guys probably were on buses, but did you guys ever have to do the vans that your coaches were driving, or were you pretty much always charter buses?
So my sophomore year, we had a really good year my freshman year, and we didn't lose anyone, and we brought in a pretty big class, and so we wouldn't fit on the bus, and so we had to drive a van as well. I think we had like
Coaches at the wheel, or did you guys have a real driver?
no, we actually a girl from the soccer team was our driver.
Was that scary, or are you like, you know what?
I don't think so. She was pretty
If you
trustworthy.
don't remember it, it must not have been too
Yeah.
Eventful, so that's good.
Yeah, I
When you
like
remember
driving,
the drives.
or I like the van because I wouldn't get bus sick. I always get bus sick.
Mm,
Would
that's fair.
work.
Quinnten, for you, you're on the team now. Obviously, probably still doing buses. Once again, D3, you're not traveling too far all the time, but I know some teams get spring break trips, things like that. What is the situation now for you guys?
Oh, I mean, it's really similar. We do a lot of bus trips. And then now I guess the difference is we're in a new conference from when Teddy was playing. So some of our teams are in Pennsylvania. And last year, in the last 2 years, they were in New York. So we were driving north more than west most of the time. And especially like we would do overnights in New York. But again, we haven't flown anywhere. We just take the bus. We have enough, we have just the right amount of coaches and players and managers that we fit on the bus perfectly and don't have to take an extra van. But we don't do, we kind of stay on campus for spring break. I think our coach really thinks that that's important time to just be working on lacrosse and getting caught up with your studies if you need to, and also just being on campus when nobody else is there with the team is just a really fun experience because you don't have class. You're just practicing, maybe doing some lifts, and then the rest of the time you're just hanging out with the guys, playing card games, watching sports. And it's just a really good bonding experience for all of us.
Awesome. Now let's talk about academics and your experience at St. Mary's. So, you mentioned physics major, right, Quentin? Did I hear that?
Yeah.
And then Teddy, you're in finance now, or financial advising now. So what was your major when you were in school? I assume something in the business side.
It was economics.
Okay. So probably not a lot of overlap with those two majors, or I don't think you were sharing too many professors. But I'll start with you, Teddy. Just looking back at your academic experience at St. Mary's, I think starting out first when you chose to go to St. Mary's, obviously I'm sure lacrosse played a good part in that. But otherwise, what drew you there? And maybe part of it was academics.
Um, so my dad teaches in the University of Maryland system, and he's a marine biologist. And so St. Mary's College being on the water, I grew up around it, and I didn't have to pay for school. And so it was really a no-brainer because the lacrosse team was competitive. I knew a lot of people that went there. Academics were great. Um, but just in terms of the opportunity that St. Mary's provided, where I didn't know what I wanted to major in when I started, I got to try biology. I tried political science and economics, and I never tried physics or computer science, but I got to try a lot of different things and figure out what I liked, which was nice.
That's awesome. And for you, Quentin, when you were deciding, once again, sure lacrosse played a part in it. What made you choose St. Mary's?
Well, first things first, I knew I wanted to go into science and I was thinking about engineering, but I didn't know what type of engineering I wanted to do. And my dad was a physics major, went into engineering and went to engineering for grad school. And so basically he was like, you can go get a physics major, a physics degree, and then while you're doing that, decide what type of engineering you want to go into and do that for your master's. So for me, St. Mary's not having engineering wasn't a problem. I could do physics and maybe a second major and then figure out while I'm here what type of engineering I want to go into. And then on top of that, there's a player that just graduated, Ethan Little, who went to my high school. We played soccer and lacrosse together every year that we were in high school together. And I knew he was coming here. I knew their program was like on the come up. And I had always kind of looked up to him. He was a great player. And so I emailed the coach and told him that I knew Ethan and I knew another guy who had played 4 years before. And the coach came and watched me play and said he'd like to have me down. And I just really loved the campus. I kind of knew I wanted to do D3 because I thought my major was going to be hard, and especially if I wanted a double major, I was going to need a lot of time for my studies. And so it was kind of a no-brainer.
Awesome. Now we're going to get into some story time. So the first thing I'm going to have you both share is your funniest or craziest, but appropriate for us to put on a podcast story. So Quentin, I'll stick with you first, and then Teddy, you can follow up.
Well, so I guess there's a lot of different things that I could say, but and they all kind of blend together. But this year there was a really funny one. So we there's a couple different places on campus where there's a trail into the woods, and then there's like some sort of fire pit with a bunch of chairs around. So there's a couple different spots that, especially in my class, like to go set up a fire, and then a bunch of the rest of the kids from the other classes on the team will come tag along and hang out. And one year or this year in the beginning in the fall, we also do a thing called freshman karaoke on the bus. When the spring rolls around, when we go on a really long trip, and the freshmen pick a song and sing for us, and it's always just a great time watching them sing and cheering them on and singing with them. And we called the freshmen up, and we had the fire rolling, and we were like, "Hey guys, come hang out with us." Um, had to tell them how to get there because it's not exactly the most beaten path. You can't. We had to send somebody out to go find them and bring them back to the fire pit. And they get down here and we're talking, and there's a kid on our team right now who actually is really into singing, and we were just messing around with them and telling them uh about freshman karaoke and what they might do in the spring and ask them about it. And this freshman class was really into the culture and really excited about all those things. And I forget how exactly it happened, but we had music rolling, and they just decided that they were going to do freshman karaoke at the fire pit with us and a couple of the members of the girls team. And some of the girls team girls did their karaoke, some of the guys, and it was just hilarious because it was so random, and we didn't ask them to do it. Um, and they were just like so into the culture, so they're just so funny, and they just wanted to sing, and they were singing everything from Katy Perry to country songs. So I mean, it's like a memory like that that just is so funny to have.
Who's the best singer in the group?
Definitely, we call him Fogel, Jack von Kerchik. He is, I mean, he really does some stuff on campus. He's in some of the theater programs and sings for the theater. So, I mean, he blows everybody out of the water at this point.
That's fair. All right, Teddy, what about you? What's one of your funny or crazy stories?
Um, One of the more appropriate stories is we have all these townhouses, these senior townhouses, and they back up to a creek. And um, to get to that creek, you have to go over this tiny bridge. And so we would have guys bring down their boats, like from their parents and stuff towards the end of the year and, go wakeboarding or whatever. And so we were in this like long battle with public safety. We built a dock in the creek, like handmade it, and we docked his boat in the creek. And we would have to wait till low tide to go under the bridge to put it there. And public safety really couldn't do much about it. But we would take that out, go wakeboarding. I know my roommate, he was a, you know, competitive snowboarder, really good wakeboarder. Uh, he did a backflip off of the wakeboard and had a GoPro, and he dropped the GoPro in like 20 feet of water. And we pretty much called it quits, but we had a guy who was really good at swimming, and he went in the next day and found it, and it was still working, still running, which was pretty cool. Um, but yeah, it's there's a lot of stories on the water. It's so much fun. I think it really makes St. Mary's unique.
Awesome. Glad you guys found the GoPro. I'm sure that would have been a big loss to the extreme sport guy there.
My roommate was pretty bummed about it. His, so he felt really bad, but
I bet. Okay, now those are funny, crazy stories, but we also probably have some favorite memories of just special things that you hold near and dear to you as you've been with the program or when you were with the program. So, Teddy, I'll have you start this one. What is just your favorite memory during your time with the program?
um, so with the program, my freshman year was a really special year. We we had some really good early wins, beating Roanoke, who was top 10 ranked, and then we beat Salisbury in the championship, uh, who was ranked, I think, top 3 or 4 at the time after losing them during the regular season by I think 12 goals. And so we ended up beating them in the championship, which really opened my eyes to pretty much anything can happen on any given day. And we did not expect, in all honesty, probably to win that game, but we were the better team that day and we deserved to win. And so that was a memory I'll always remember. I think I could be wrong, but I think that that was our first conference championship. Maybe it was the first in a really long time, but it was a huge win for us and something that I'll always remember.
Quentin, how about you?
For me, last year we won our first NCAA tournament game at home, and then our next round was in New York, and we stayed in Albany, and we had gone up on a Thursday, had practice, and then Friday had practice again, and then we basically had the whole day. And our coach said, pair up, make sure you're walking around with somebody, but you guys can go check out the city, go get food, whatever you guys want to do. And there are a couple different stories from that that were great, but the group that I went with, we decided to walk around and find the museums. And there was the New York State Museum, I guess, is there. And so we walked around there for a while. We saw all the different infrastructure in Albany, and it was just a great time. We walked around all day. Didn't even we got it was funny because we got to the end of the day and we had walked around for hours, and then we were like thinking about where we were going to get food for dinner, and we realized we hadn't eaten lunch, and we were all so hungry. But it didn't like nobody had noticed because we were just having such a good time walking around. And then there was another group of guys that went to a thrift store and got a bunch of funky hats and brought them back out. And I remember we're getting ready to go to a nice dinner with the team, and our coach is just laughing with us about the hats that they bought. And I've got a nice picture of him trying one on in the mirror, and everybody just thought it was the funniest thing. Him trying on the hats, he was just having a great time in New York. Exciting. And then the next day we had a really good game. Ended up losing by one to the top 10 or 20 team in Middlebury. Oh, and even though we lost by one that day, I think that opened us our eyes up to how good we can be and how we can compete with some teams. And so just that whole trip was was a great memory for me.
That's awesome. Now we'll kind of start to wrap it up. So just talk a little bit more about some Division III stuff. So you're both are or were Division III student athletes, and I know Quentin, you mentioned a little bit you were kind of looking for that experience when you were looking at colleges. But what does it mean to you to be or to have been a Division III student athlete? And Quentin, I'll stick with you first, then Teddy, you can follow up.
Well, for me, coming out of high school, I kind of knew that D3 made sense, but I also wanted to play Division 1, and I thought like that was a big goal for me because I knew some people that played, and I thought I could play. And COVID happened, so I thought that I was gonna go play Division 3, and then if something opened up in Division 1, I'd go play Division 1. But after going to St. Mary's for the first year and second year and seeing the bonds that we had on the team and the culture that was there, as well as being able to double major and still have free time to go hang out at the docks and getting playing time, hanging out with other teams and stuff like that. It's just it made me realize that D3 really is like all encompassing. You get the best of really everything. Like you get the best of academics, the best social aspect, and then also you get to play competitively as well. So for me, once I just realized that you get the best of everything and you don't really have to sacrifice any one of those things that are really important to you, that's why D3 is so great.
I'm going to put that on a billboard next time we need to do an ad campaign for D3. Teddy, for you, what about you? What did it mean to you to be a D3 student athlete?
Yeah, I think Q really just hit the nail on the head. But I think it really helps with structure. It is very competitive. It's something that I think is really rare, that these guys can all be on the same page, working together towards the same goal. I mean, just watching them, and they really have each other's backs. Uh, it's a great culture. I can't speak to what Division 1 or 2 is like, but I can honestly tell you that at St. Mary's, especially now with how great the culture is, that everyone truly cares for each other. And that's not just on the lacrosse field. I think Coach Childs worries more about people off the lacrosse field than on the lacrosse field in terms of making sure that they're happy, that they're doing well academically, that they're being good sons to their parents. Which I I don't think, there's a lot that can replicate what we have at St. Mary's right now.
That's awesome. One question I like to ask the former student athletes a lot now that you're in the workforce, what's maybe the top skill that you learned just by being a student athlete that has helped you once you got into the real world and got a job and everything?
Yeah, well, I mean, sports are hard. Failure is something that's
Mhm.
pretty constant, right? And so part of being in the workforce is how do you respond to failure? And I think that that's something that is explicitly taught in Division 3 or just in sports in general is how do you react to failure? You can really do one of two things. You can complain or figure out how to fix it. And so that's something that I definitely learned um, in college.
That's a great answer. I feel like I always hear, I learned how to manage my time. I learned how to do this, but that's a really, really great answer to that question. Okay, last question for both of you. So this podcast is part of our 50th anniversary, Division 3. So we're 50 years down, many, many more to come. So you're going to have to kind of look into the future a little bit, or at least guess about the future a little bit. And I want to know what you see for the future of Division 3. And I will start with you on this one, Teddy, and then Quinnten, you can follow up. So what do you see, or what do you hope to see maybe? So maybe more hopeful.
I mean, just speaking like about um, it being more competitive, I think that the level of play has, grown a ton. I think, the team right now, if they were playing back when I was playing, would be a top five team. I just think that the game has gotten so much better. I do think that uh, in terms of Division 3, like if you watched a Division 3 game when I was playing, it is nothing like the experience you get right now. There weren't any announcers. You couldn't really see the ball. The cameras weren't nearly as good. And I think that that's so exciting. I get fired up. My girlfriend coaches St. Mary's. And when I watch their games and the announcers are great, I can see the play develop. There's multiple cameras. I get pumped up about that. The viewing experience has just gotten so much better. And so hopefully, in 50 years, we're gonna have like VR or something, or gonna be happening. But I can only imagine that the experience for watching D3 sports is gonna get a lot better.
That's great. Shout out to the SIDs.
Yeah.
Uh, Quinnten, how about for you? What do you hope to see for the future?
I mean, I guess realistically, the same thing. I mean, just continuing to see the play develop, um, and just the viewer experience too. Um, I guess for me, I'm worried about, I know it's hard to have a small school, um, and like right now, there's a couple schools that are disbanding or getting bought out by bigger Division 1 schools, like Cabrini, who was a really good lacrosse team. They just got bought out by Villanova, and so their team all had to transfer or just graduate or stop playing lacrosse. And for me, I just hope that the D3 schools themselves can find a way to keep their sports and keep their school to themselves so that those Division 3 programs don't have to disband, because I know for those guys that has to be one of the toughest times ever to go try and find a new team. And just especially for lacrosse, because even in Division 1, there are places where the lacrosse team has to be disbanded because they don't have the funding. And so I guess just making sure that in D3 level, lacrosse continues to be funded and the schools continue to keep lacrosse teams. So that's basically it.
Great answer. Well, thank you to you both for being here today. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedules to join me on the podcast, and I've loved chatting with you and hearing some great stuff. I have a whole list of places to visit whenever I eventually make it out to Maryland. So thanks for that. But thank you guys for being here today.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
To everyone listening, thanks for tuning into this episode of Small Talk. We post new episodes every week. To follow along with everything Division 3, you can find us on social media at NCAA D3 or NCAA DIII. Make sure to join the conversation with us all year long by using the hashtag DIII50. Have a great day, and we'll see you for some more Small Talk next week.